Welcome to All About Art. My name is Alexandra, and I'm an art historian, curator, and writer. Within this podcast, topics relating to art history, cultural policy, the art sector, as well as a large range of other art-related topics will be covered. Conducting critical discussions, having entertaining exchanges, or just enjoying some relaxing chats, All About Art is where you'll find it all. Join me in exploring and developing cultural discourse. Welcome to another episode of All About Art, where I sit down with the Associate Director of Galerie Max Hetzler here in London, Natalia Fuller. I ask her about her education and career, more specifically about her courses at UPenn and the Courtauld, as well as her previous experiences at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Philadelphia and the Lisson Gallery in London. We chat about her role at Galerie Max Hetzler today and how artists can seek gallery representation. Listen in to hear the tips that she would give those wanting to enter into the arts, as well as what her role is with Saloon, the all-female networking group run by her and other leading ladies in the arts. Stay tuned to hear us chat all about navigating the art world through professional experiences, career advice, and more. Thank you, Natalia, for coming on the podcast. And now, on to the interview. So, Natalia, let's start with the basics. Tell me about your background and your education at University of Pennsylvania and the Courtauld in London. What did you study?
So I have a pretty classical training in art history. I studied art history both at Penn and at the Courtauld. At Penn, I focused on contemporary art, but it was much broader in terms of the entire history of art. I went to Rome to study Renaissance art, and I focused in my last year on contemporary video art. And then at the Courtauld, my course was called Global Conceptualism with Sarah Wilson. So I studied that, but again, my focus was on video art and specifically on Israeli video art and performance art. I wrote about Yael Bartana and Amir Yitziv, looking at the way they used performance and video to imagine a different future and try to use creativity in a way to find a way out of a stalemate.
That sounds really amazing. You also have had quite an impressive career path with roles at the Institute of Contemporary Art and Lisson Gallery. How did these experiences impact your career, and what are some of the lessons that you took with you throughout each different role?
So at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Philadelphia, it's when I was still at school. I was on the student board there, and I also did an internship. I grew up in New York, and one of the things that I loved about, starting my career in the art in Philly through student life was that it was a very, very welcoming community. And even as a student, I had access to, one of my professors was a curator at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I was very involved with the Institute of Contemporary Art. I learned they're a very forward-thinking institution, and they put on incredible shows. And I got to discover a ton of contemporary artists and get very privileged access to them through that, and learn quite early on how an institution is run. So I really enjoyed that. And then I came to London to do my master's, and shortly thereafter started at Lisson Gallery. And Lisson was amazing because I got to work directly with a lot of the artists that I had studied in school.
What a dream.
It was really cool. I loved it. So I worked with Richard Long or with Art and Language, who in the context of global conceptualism, I had done research into during my master's, and then also the next generation of artists and more internationally like Pedro Reyes or Christian Jankowski. And that was a great experience and a great place to start and to learn from really brilliant mentors.
Yeah. Something that I'm hearing that I think is really interesting and what resonates with me as well in my experience is while you were at uni to get involved with different things. And so when you were in Pennsylvania, and that's where you had your experience at the Institute of Contemporary Art, and you were getting involved even then, I think that a lot of people underestimate the importance of that and how that can affect your career later on.
Yeah, it's super important. I started interning probably in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I did, my first internship was working on Leo and His Circle, which was a book on Leo Castelli and the early years of the gallery world in New York. And I did quite a few internships throughout university, and it was very helpful in kind of understanding what the different aspects of the art world are.
Yeah.
Early on, I was convinced that I wanted to work in an auction house, and then did an internship at Christie's, which was super interesting, and I learned a lot. But I realized that actually what I really wanted was to work directly with artists, and so it made more sense for me to be in a gallery setting, and I ended up pursuing that.
Yeah, I understand. It's funny how through different experiences, how things change. Like I moved to London thinking I was going to specialize in old masters, and now I'm in contemporary art. So it's great to gather these experiences, not only to inform your further career, but also to learn for yourself of what you want and what you might not want. But tell me more about your role as associate director at Galerie Max Hetzler. How has it evolved, and what does it entail today?
It's quite a broad role. We put on exhibitions every 6 to 8 weeks at the gallery, and the role involves managing those exhibitions with a very wide variety of people. So artists, working directly with them, which is initially why I came to the gallery world, but also working with clients, working with press, working with my colleagues, and everything that goes into putting on an exhibition.
Yeah. 6 to 8 weeks sounds like a fast turnaround. That must be a really fast-paced job. Is sales also a big part of your role?
Yeah, definitely. Once the show opens, and also around art fairs, or we also have galleries in Berlin and Paris and are opening soon in Marfa. So I also work with clients on those shows. So that is definitely a big part of it.
And what's the favorite part of your job, or the coolest thing that you've had the opportunity to do in your professional career so far?
Like the best days are probably when I go on studio visits. For instance, I was just in Paris over the weekend meeting with Giulia Andriani, who's one of the artists that we work with, and taking a curator to her studio, which is kind of the most exciting moment where you get to exchange ideas with all of these really incredible minds. And what I love in working directly with artists and going on studio visits and learning about their practice, both through research and from them, is that they often have a very unique perspective and a very unique lens that they see the world through, and an approach which is entirely different from my own. And so I love that I'll always learn something new from them and from what they're exploring at the moment.
Absolutely. I think that my new role, because I've now moved from working in an auction house to being a studio manager of an artist studio. And so I'm kind of on the other side of things, as, you know, if galleries would want to come to the studio and speak to the artist or learn a little bit more about his practice. And I think that it's just as much fun for us as it is for you guys. It's a really wonderful meeting of the minds and a lot of communication and things like that are really incredible. And I can completely agree that doing that can just be such a fun part of your day. So what qualities do you look for in people you might want to work with, be it artists or even employees or collaborators in general?
Curiosity is definitely an important one. I think all around, whether it's with artists or colleagues or collaborators. In terms of having a good working relationship, I think empathy is important, and definitely an attention to detail, and being able to have an interesting exchange and then drive that forward.
What does it mean, if you're an artist, to be represented by a gallery? And what would an artist need to do if they wanted to be represented by a gallery such as Max Hetzler? That's
a difficult question, and I think a question that I get asked pretty often by young artists. I think in the best case, a gallery is there to support you and to help garner attention for your work, and to basically know people in the world who would be interested in it, whether it's from a curatorial perspective or a collector, and bringing that attention to your work, and also just supporting you in your practice. I think in terms of gaining representation, there's definitely an element of chance to it, but I always recommend to young artists that they really connect with their peers, that they try to, figure out who the other young artists that they think similarly to are and see how they can show together at, a very starter level. So it might be putting on a show in their house or connecting with curators who are young the way they are. And I think that builds a community, and from there it builds upwards.
Yeah, I think that I fully agree with that, because a couple of the smaller spaces are like, there's Slash Arts. They exhibit on their houseboat near King's Cross, and they take graduates. That's the goal, is because it should be a starting off point. Or Offshoot Gallery out in East Finchley, I curated with them because they support emerging curators and emerging artists.
Amazing.
And those are the types of, I think, things, or the types of organizations that artists and curators, people generally who want to get involved in the arts, should look out for. Not least to just add something to the CV and show that you've actually showed somewhere, but also just to connect with like-minded professionals. I definitely think that it was a point, this is kind of a criticism to my own university. I don't know if you experienced the same, but at UCL, I would have loved to, as an art history student, to connect with the slate a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That's a world-class MFA that they offer there. It's one of the best known MFAs that you can have. So it would have been so lovely if they would have connected these history of art students who eventually want to go on and work in museums and galleries and auction houses and what have you, to these contemporary artists. Because a lot of them, even though I came thinking I wanted to study old masters, I ended up going into contemporary art.
Yeah.
So connecting with these people would have been incredibly beneficial. Was something like that at your uni, or also not really?
At the Courtauld, no, because it's really a strictly art historical school.
Yeah.
At Penn, we had BFA and an MFA, but as art historians, we weren't particularly connected with them either.
Yeah.
I think that Goldsmiths actually does quite a good job in terms of having both artists and theorists studying there and bringing that together more organically.
Yeah. I also studied at Goldsmiths, but I didn't do curating. I did arts administration and cultural policy, so that didn't involve direct contact with artists.
Okay.
But I have to admit, Goldsmiths does have a very different approach to things, and I can only say positive things about them, to be completely honest. But moving on from that, you are also a founding board member of, and you run, the London chapter of Saloon, which is a professional network for women working in the arts. So can you tell me more about that? How did you get started with it, and what's your role within that?
Absolutely. So Saloon is an international network which was started in Berlin quite a few years ago by Tina Sauerlander and has since spread to, I think, almost 10 cities throughout Europe. And Mara Kolmel and I were invited to start the London chapter maybe something like 2 years ago now. And Mariana Lemos has since joined us as well to run the London branch. And we put on monthly events, whether it be studio visits or panel discussions or exhibition tours, to bring together women in the art world in London and really create a community and an open forum for exchange and collaboration.
I find that it's such a wonderful initiative. That's how we came together and how we met. And it's, to any of you listeners, or to any of you female listeners, it is a very wonderful opportunity to meet people and to exchange ideas, as you said, and just to network and find out what other people do. And it really is so beneficial and so wonderful to have. So, Natalia, why do you feel that it's important to have all female networking opportunities?
I think that when the network was started, the landscape for women in the arts was very different. And I think that since the whole Me Too movement, there's definitely been a new awareness of women's roles in the art world, of certain hierarchies. As I'm sure you've also experienced, the art world is very heavily populated by women in kind of all tiers, except for the very top tier, which is generally male. And likewise, female artists are generally quite underrepresented. That, again, is definitely a heightened awareness of that, and that's changing now. But I think that being a woman in the art world can have its challenges. And it's just nice to create an open forum where you're with people who are experiencing the same thing as you, and you can share that. And I think also create this link, which is outside of a specific purpose or professional goal in any immediate sense. Yes, I think it's just about creating that community. And in this instance, it's about women in the art world. But I think that any avenue in a way is also valid for creating that alternate sense of community.
And if someone wanted to aspire to have a career like yours, how would you say they should go about it? What are the tools that someone should be looking to add to their professional toolbox?
We discussed this a little bit earlier on, but I think definitely trying things out early on, getting internships, seeing what interests you, what the daily life in a gallery or a museum or an auction house really is. And also through that, building your network and kind of just learning to be a professional, because we learn certain things in school that are academic and theoretical and very valuable, but it doesn't mean that you know necessarily how to answer an email in a timely manner or these very practical skills.
Or that you know how to pick up the phone. I mean, how many people, not like digging on people, because I was like this when I first started working, when I was a teenager, but answering the phone made me so nervous.
Totally.
And now I'm people say I have a telephone voice. I mean, probably, which led to me podcasting as well. But yeah, completely. It's these things. And as you go along, at least from my experience, it's not only these little things like answering the phone or answering an email in a timely manner, knowing how to word certain things, but it's also learning bigger things that you don't learn in school. I studied art history. And yes, in my arts admin and cultural policy degree, I had an overview of the cultural and creative industries and how I would go about starting a business in it. But they don't teach you how to fill out an insurance policy form for, trying to import something or transport an artwork or, all these other things that you have to know how to do. Yeah. And these things all come through experience.
I think also another thing that's quite important is developing your own interests in art, because a lot of the time you're learning what you're taught by your teacher, and that's their interests. And I think going out and seeing shows and figuring out what you like is super important. And sometimes people don't really do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it took me 1.5 years to go to Tate after I moved to London. I had never been, I know that's people listening are going to be like, what the absolutely. I think that I started regularly going to galleries and museums and stuff about 2 years in. Granted, I didn't come from any type of arts background. My parents aren't involved in the arts. I had a semester of art history in school and then just decided to go into art history because I felt pulled to it. So I think that might have contributed to that, is that it wasn't a normal space for me to be in. But after starting to go, I really began to realize how important it is. So even if you don't have an internship, even if you are still working on trying to get that work experience, at least go to galleries or gallery openings and museums. And goodness, maybe you'll meet someone at a gallery opening, someone that you can network with, someone that you can speak to. So just doing these things is also a step in the right direction in not only knowing what you like and learning about that, but possibly even networking. Regarding maybe someone who isn't in the arts just yet, be it someone who's quite young or someone who already has an established career but wants to make a career change, what is a piece of advice that you would give to someone wanting to enter into the arts?
I think if you're young, then just try a lot of things out and see what fits.
Yeah.
I think that when you come out of school, you kind of think that there's one path. You graduate from high school and you're like, there's one university for me, and then I have to do my master's in this one place. And I think that in the professional world, there are many different experiences from which you'll learn things. I mean, sometimes I'll look at a CV and be like, oh, this person works in a restaurant. That's kind of interesting to me. And it's not the obvious thing to, lead to a career in the art world. In terms of changing careers, I think likewise, it's about figuring out what skill set you've acquired in your previous career that can help you make a more lateral move, because if you're changing careers, you probably don't want to start as a receptionist in a gallery.
Yeah.
So I think figuring out like if you have a network or whatever it is that's kind of bringing you to the art world and that'll help you get ahead.
Absolutely. I think that, again, you're saying so many things that resonate with me, because when I was a teenager, I was 17, 18, and I worked in retail. And I worked in high-end retail. And so we learned a lot of things of, as I said, like, answering the phones, or there were certain ways that you would treat clients or customers that would come in. And when it came time for me to have my interview at Sotheby's, that was for a client services role. And so even though I had worked in retail, I was quite young, so it doesn't necessarily fit someone who might have an established career and want to change. But if you're a younger person wanting to go into the arts, look for these jobs in, client services, be it in hospitality or in fashion. And then you can really utilize those tools that you've learned in those jobs just by dealing with clients and speaking to people and learning how to do that on a day-to-day basis. And these types of things are actually really, really useful and can be implemented in many different jobs in the arts. Going on to a bit of a different question, what have you been reading lately, be it magazines or articles or books that have inspired you? I find reading so important.
It really is. I recently read a great book, actually. I recommend it to everyone. It's called Homegoing by Yag Yassi. She just wrote a new book called Transcendent Kingdom, which is also very good, but definitely Homegoing is the best one. It starts with a family in Ghana and explores their lineage through the history of slavery and colonialism, and through that explores issues of race in America as well. And it's really powerful and really well written, and also the structure of the book is very interesting. And then Bell Hooks just died, and All About Love, I think, is a super powerful book, and I've been rereading it, and I highly recommend that. And otherwise, I've also been enjoying New Yorker cartoons.
I haven't read either of the books that you've just recommended, so I'm going to note that down and get those on my reading list, which is growing and growing and growing.
There's a great Japanese word, which I can't remember, of course, but about basically this act of like buying books and having all of these books stack up that you really want to read and that you're not getting to.
Absolutely. I definitely do that. But at least I try. I make an effort. I think that now that we're coming out of restrictions and we're going into work instead of working from home as much, I definitely use my commute to read more. So on to my penultimate question. Are there any plans or goals for your career that you can divulge here with me today, be it in the gallery world or with Saloon or possibly another endeavor?
I think to continue going in the same direction. With Saloon, we started it a few months before the pandemic, and so now we can finally have in-person events, which is really great. And so we want to continue to grow that and continue to foster that network. On a professional level in the gallery world, I'd like to continue to explore emerging artists in London and also globally. There are, for instance, a few artists in Mexico who I think are amazing, and see where that can coincide with the gallery program.
That sounds really amazing. And my very last question, just to end on a bit of a fun one. If you could have one artwork from art history or from contemporary times in your home, which one would it be and why?
I don't know if I can choose just one.
And you can't choose one from like the gallery and then have all the other ones like...
I'll have the whole collection of the Met, please. Thank you.
This is a fun one. You could say that.
I would love to have a Cycladic sculpture. I would love to have one of Picasso's Arlequin, a Fausto Melotti sculpture.
No, just keep going. Keep going. I bet there's a long
just
list.
Building my dream collection here. I'd love to have a Georgia O'Keeffe.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Also a Morandi, a little Morandi. And I love going to Frieze Masters, and they always have these incredible presentations of like mini works by all of these incredible artists. Like a mini Barbara Hepworth would be really nice.
Oh my God, yes.
I
think I'd die a little bit if I could own a mini Barbara Hepworth.
Yeah.
Oof. Or even just
Really
like a
nice.
normal sized. Well, I mean, okay, normal sized. What is normal sized with Barbara Hepworth? Because it could
Dream
be
big.
like, yeah, the side of John Lewis, that one. Because there's, for any listeners who don't live in London, or even Londoners who don't know the big sculpture on the side of John Lewis, there is a humongous Barbara Hepworth right on the facade on Oxford Street that you can go and see. So that's quite fun. But yeah, I think dream big, building your own little collection of art that you would absolutely love to have. Well, that was my very last question. So I guess we're going to end it here. Natalia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
And that is it for today on All About Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or a review, as it helps more people discover the show. Also, feel free to share with your friends, or if you share on social media, tag me and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening.